How you doing, everyone? Greetings and welcome back to a very cold basement that hasn't had any kind of videos or stuff done in it for a long time. But before I tell you about all that, let me just say that I hope you had a very happy Christmas and wish you a belated happy 2024. Now, what's after happening is, I kind of ventured into programming, which is something I thought I would never be any good at or wouldn't like. Well, you need to be careful when you start something new like that, because with programming, I've found, at least, if you like it, it's all consuming. You see, what happened was I was using bAtari Basic and I made a little hedgehog game for the Atari 2600 using that. And then I decided I would try converting it to the Coco 2 and found that really it needs to be written in assembly language. So I decided, well, we'll have a look at assembly. And for the last few months, I have been consumed by assembly. I found I really like it, but it's taken up all my time. No videos being made, no hardware stuff being done. It's all assembly. But I am making leaps and bounds into that. So hopefully there will be, a bob for the Coco 2 coming out fairly soon. But what I have done is I found a directory on a hard drive with a few bits and pieces of footage that I had recorded a couple of years back and never actually used because I pretty much forgot I had it. So when I found it, I said, great, at least I'll be able to put out something. So this is the first of that, dealing with the Coco SDC, using the Coco SDC on the Coco 2 without using the SDCX Explorer, just using kind of Coco DOS, if you like. I hope you enjoy it. How you doing, everybody? Greetings and welcome to yet another episode of 8 Bits in the Basement. So here I am, presided over by ET, with my Radio Shack TRS-80 color computer 2 powered on in the glow, the radioactive glow of its green screen. And the reason I've got all this set up like this is I want to show you my Coco SDC. Now, the Coco SDC is a device that has been out for years, and I'm way behind the curve on it because loads of YouTubers are already after reviewing it and showing it on their channels. But here I am now with my new one that I picked up for my birthday about a week and a half ago. And I just want to show it to you. I want to show you what it is and what it does. But first off, what it actually is it is a disk emulator for the Tandy color computer range. So it'll work on the color computer 1, 2 or 3. So it's good value in that way. If you've got those 3 computers, you'd buy one device and it works for all of them. And it's pretty much the same thing as an SD to IEC is to the Commodore 64 or the VIC-20. It's a little device that'll let you mount disk images onto your computer, and those disk images you pretty much have stored on an SD card. But this guy actually goes one little step further because it has 128 kilobytes of flash memory in it, and that can be programmed with 16 kilobyte ROM or cartridge images, so that you can actually use it as a multi-cart as well in a way. Well, a multi-cart, that kind of a way. But that's a kind of a higher up level feature, I suppose. But the reason I got this for myself was a device I heard about ages ago. And I've been loading any software I've been using Driveware. Now, Driveware is a way of connecting this guy to an IBM PC and using the IBM PC as like a host server for a floppy disk. So once you have the PC set up with the right software, this guy will see it as a floppy disk and pretty much read and write to it. And it's great. It works very well, but it's not really ergonomic. You've got to turn on your PC, you've got to set it up anytime you want to use all this stuff. Whereas this guy plugs into the side and away you go. But anyway, that's pretty much what this is. So starting up the old Coco with the Coco SDC stuck into the side of it gives us this here at startup. We have SDC-DOS version 1.6, which is the latest version of SDC-DOS as of May 2022. And it's a disk operating system that will allow us to access any files that we have on the SD card within the Coco SDC so that we can mount them and manipulate them pretty much like floppy disk drives. Now, it works in much the same way as DOS did on old IBM PCs back in the late 80s and the early 90s. So you have to type in long-winded kind of convoluted commands in order to actually do anything at all. So it's a very good thing that somebody took the time to write a little Explorer program for the Coco SDC that will, if you wanted to, auto-launch at boot up, and it'll let you do all kinds of things like navigate through your SD card, select files, mount disks, create directories, delete files and directories as well, and pretty much launch stuff just with a couple of keystrokes. But what I thought we'd do was that we would look at the actual DOS side with long-winded commands and whatnot for two reasons. Because number one, DOS is something I really like. I really like fooling around with that, always have. And number two, I thought that it'd give you more of an appreciation for the actual Explorer program afterwards as well, after seeing what kind of hardship you have to go through with DOS. So we'll get started on that there now. Okay, so the very first command I'm going to show you is the drive command. Now this is pretty much a command that keeps coming up again and again and again, but in its simplest form, we just type drive. And what it does is it gives us a list of the 4 virtual drives that we have available to us on the Coco SDC. So you can see here that our 4 drives are drive 0 through 3. The second column here tells us the status of the drive, and the third column actually tells us the name of the disk image that we have mounted. So you'll see that we have no disk image at all mounted in drive 0 or 1, nor do we have a disk image mounted in drive 2 or 3, but these two, drive 2 and 3, are actually kind of reserved for DriveWare. Now you'll remember DriveWare is the system I was talking about that I used before with an external PC in order to serve the Coco as like a floppy disk drive. So the Coco SDC will also operate with that, and it's got these 2 disks here kind of put aside for that. So what we're going to be looking at more or less today are drive 0 and 1 and how we can use those. So the first thing we want to do is we want to mount a disk image so that we can see what information is on it and actually get it to work. But in order to mount a disk image, we need to know the name of it and where it lives on the SD card. So first off, what we want to do is we want to see what files and folders are available to us on the SD card. And very much like in an awful lot of disk operating systems, the command to do that is dir. But to see what's on the SD card, we type dir followed by a little minus like this, and that'll differentiate between the actual mounted disk image and the SD card. So now when I press enter, it gives me a list of all the files and directories that are available to me on the SD card. Now, I prepared this a little bit earlier, so I'm after copying hw.disk onto the root directory of my SD card, and this here is the disk image that we're actually going to mount. So what I'm going to do is I want to mount this disk image to drive 0. So in order to do that, I type drive 0 followed by a comma, and then I need to do inverted commas and give the path to this actual disk image. So here it is /hw.dsk. I press enter, and that should be after mounting that disk image for us, and we can check and see that that has happened by using the drive command just like that again. And now we see that hw.disk is mounted in position 0, so to drive 0. And to see the contents of that disk, what files are available on it, I just type dir. And these here are the contents of that disk. So this disk is actually a game called Nightmare Highway for the Coco. And what we have in here are the files that make it up. So in order to run it, I'm going to launch hw.bas. So that's a basic program. And what you would do with a Coco in order to run that from a disk is you would type load, because it's a basic program, inverted commas, and hw.bas, and hit enter. Now that loads up, it tells us okay, and then you run it. And that there is working exactly as it would if we had a real disk plugged into a disk drive attached to a disk controller in the Coco itself. So let us play that game, and there you go, you see that that's working. So that there is Nightmare Highway running on the Coco SDC. Now I'll power down, we can power back up again, and what I'll do is I'll show you how we can create our own disk image so that we can save programs and whatnot that we've written ourselves. So what we'll do is we'll write a small little program first off. We'll do a little hello world type thing. So I'll do 10 print hello and 20 go to 10. Okay, so when we run that, that gives us hello down the screen. Now, again, if I type drive, we see that we have absolutely no disks mounted at all, but I can create a new disk. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a disk using the drive command again. We type drive 0 because I want to create the disk image in drive 0, comma. Again, I tell it the name that I want to call the disk, so we'll just call it hello.dsk. We'll close those and comma new because I want to create a new disk. I hit enter and it creates that disk image. If I type drive again, we can see that the disk image has been created there. Now, the next thing we want to do really in order to use it properly is to format that disk. So we can do disk ini, which is to initialize the disk, disk ini disk 0. So that takes a little moment, but it should be formatting that disk. There we go. Now if I type dir, we can see that that disk is empty. I can list out my program I created earlier, and now I can type save and we'll just call it hello. Now when I type dir, that has been saved to that disk there. So there we go. So that disk is called hello.disk. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to power off. We will power back on. Now, so starting off again, if I type drive, there's nothing mounted. Now I want to mount my hello.dsk. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drive 0, comma, hello.dsk. There we go, that should mount that. And now when I directory that, and I can load that and run. And there we go. So all that is working the way it should. Now, if I want to unmount that disk, the command I use is again drive, because drive is used for everything. So if I type drive 0, comma, unload, because unload is our unmount command, and hit enter, whoops, hit enter, that should be after unmounting that disk, and we can verify that again with drive. And there we go. So that's some of the DOS commands that we can use there, but they're kind of long-winded. There's an awful lot of typing, especially if you want to see what's on the SD card. You need to individually go through each directory to see what's there and whatnot. So like I say, thankfully somebody has made a little program that will allow us to use the Coco SDC very, very easily. Now, so as this was a pretty haphazard kind of thrown together thing, there's no outro for it. So this here is the outro. So just allow me to say that if you stuck with it up until now, thank you very much. I don't know when the next video will be out. I'm hoping I'll get some kind of a thing together kind of quickly that I can put out that'll be halfway decent. And I want to finish up that bAtari basic series as well. But again, these rabbit holes really suck you down. But I will talk to you soon enough, I hope. Until then, bye-bye.